Welcome to Schoolin the SiSTEM podcast. I'm your host, Darian Kelly, and today I have a very, very special guest, Shannon Grayce. Shannon is an entrepreneur, adventure enthusiast. She hails from Maine and has a degree in luxury brand management and marketing from Susquehanna University. She started her first business, a market research firm, and solo backpack throughout Asia and road trip the USA and out of the back of her Subaru. And she then entered into an intensive sales training program and drove over 300K in revenue in 1 year. She then decided to step out of corporate life and start helping freelancers build their business, understand sales, and get really excited to market their service and make more money. She now helps conscious online wellness coaches get consistent clients and make more money so that they can spend their free time adventuring and doing what they love to do. You can follow her at her Instagram at Shannon Grayce, and email. You can email and reach her through email at grace.shannon@gmail. Welcome to Schoolin the SiSTEM podcast, Shannon.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome.
Yes, absolutely.
It's spelled with Grayce. It's always just a little bit of
it could be a bit confusing.
Yeah, a little confusing.
Yeah, and I understand that this has been a highly anticipated conversation and episode, and I'm really, really grateful to have you on. As one of our first guests, and so yeah, we're just gonna jump right into it. Tell me a little bit about, what has life been like in the age of COVID for you? Just not even just with business, but just both in business and like, what has that been like? So these past 5 or so months.
Dang, that is such a great question. So first of all, COVID is the reason why I decided to step out of corporate life. So it's been a pretty big blessing in disguise for me. Obviously, there's been a lot of really tough things that have been happening emotionally and spiritually as well in the last 5-6 months. And I feel as though it was important for us to be able to have this time to be able to sit and reflect and spend a lot of time by ourselves and with our family or with our significant others, and be able to really sit with what we believe and who we are, and really think about the projects that we really want to pursue in life. So that's one of the reasons why, as an entrepreneur, I decided to leave corporate life, is because during all of this, my quote unquote side hustle became my main hustle because the corporate position that I had was a direct marketing position. So we were talking face to face with people constantly. Right. So the entire branch just totally shut down.
Wow.
So I started to really dig into my personal projects, take time for myself, more self-care.
Right. Absolutely.
It's so important. But also really being able to see results from constant work on your personal projects. So I'm honestly thankful for the flow of the world right now. And even though it's painful a lot of the time, I think that what's the word? It shows progress, in short, because no growth comes without challenges. And so I think we're going through a really, really challenging part of history right now. And I think that means that we're going to grow from it and come out on top.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that, I think the biggest thing that I've learned just within these past 5 months is flexibility. And like you mentioned, your side hustle becoming your main hustle. I think pre-COVID, the beginning of this year was more so, I really wanted to, reinvent not just myself, but also, explore new things, explore different sides of myself. And I think with COVID happening and, having to work from home and be home so much, it really allowed for me to, start things like a blog, start things like a podcast, really explore other sides of myself instead of just working, right? Because our work is in our home and there's no separation. So without that separation, it forces you to really explore and do other things and really find out who you really are beyond just work.
Yeah, exactly. And you bring up a really interesting point, because when I stopped having an insane schedule, 14-hour days,
right,
6 days a week, really just grinding it out all the time. And then all of a sudden there's zero work to do.
Exactly. It just stops.
Yeah, but you still have that drive, that mentality of like, I got to work 14 hours a day. What am I going to put myself into?
Right.
And then you realize if I put half as much work, effort, and energy into what I love doing
Mhm.
as I am with this other job that, I'm working for somebody else's dream and someone else's project,
Right.
that is what really hit me. Is because
Absolutely.
as much work as I had been putting in on my side hustle,
Mhm.
air quotes, for the
Yeah.
work
Absolutely.
I've been putting in, I didn't realize how much work I could be putting in if I just had the time to do it.
Certainly, certainly. And I think that that's something to highlight on. And you speak a lot about, in that, what you were just talking about, the side hustle becoming the main hustle. Tell us, how did you, start how did you start your own sales coaching business for wellness professionals? Like, how did it all come about, in the midst of all of this? And how did you turn that into the main hustle, so to speak?
Yeah, 100%. So it was never really my long-term vision,
Mhm.
to be honest. It was a marriage of a bunch of different things in my life that just started to fuse together during the last 6 months and started to seriously make sense and just work. So I'll go over a couple of those things.
Yeah.
First of all, I am huge into wellness as a
Mm.
person. And as my family, I grew up in Maine. We're always outdoors, always active, really conscious about health, and eating good food, putting the right things into your body, and also taking care of your mental health too.
Right.
I grew up a dancer. I
Mhm.
competitively danced for 18 years of my life, and moving is just something I don't stop doing, whether
Mhm.
it's hiking or climbing or going to the gym, yoga, whatever it might be. In addition to physical health, I also am a huge advocate for mental health, and I know that it is just a couple of days ago was Suicide Awareness
It was.
Day, and it's really important to take care of our mental health and be aware that you know being in a bad headspace is not just something you can get over. It's a
Mhm.
true illness or wellness issue.
Right.
And if we take care of it, like we take care of our bodies, that is when we're going to be able to be our best and not just look our best, but be
Right.
our best
Exactly.
in our mind and in our spirit too. So I have definitely got into a lot of yoga,
Mhm.
a lot of meditation practices, breath work, exercises. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Wim Hof, but
Mhm.
you've probably been seeing me ice bathing on my
Absolutely.
Instagram.
I've seen that. I've seen that. I've seen that, like, the big tubs and the ice. I've seen that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So ice bathing.
Right.
If anybody isn't familiar with Wim Hof, he's known as the Iceman.
Mm.
Basically, he can regulate his body temperature using his breath only, and has done crazy things like run marathons in the desert with only 2 cups of coffee before.
Wow.
He also has hiked Everest in a t-shirt and shorts. He, and these are things like he's been brought on TED Talks and just put in a vat of ice with all these different bio monitors on him.
Unbelievable.
And yeah, and he just like breathes, does his breathing exercises, and he's in this vat of ice for like 3 hours, and
Mm.
he is regulating his body temperature,
Mm.
and it's not changing at all. Whereas like a normal person would become hypothermic and just die.
Right.
So he came across these different methods and started to really preach them. He's a weird dude, though.
Yeah.
If you watch
To
his,
hike Everest in shorts is the craziest
oh
thing
yeah,
I've ever heard.
he's definitely as weird as he sounds.
Wow.
But he definitely is onto something.
Mm.
So there is 2 different elements to ice bathing, like the benefits. The
Right.
first is physical wellness. It really helps to break down the lactic acid in your muscles. If you're really into heavy lifting or really into long distance running or just a super active person in general, it will accelerate your recovery exponentially.
Mm.
It's amazing. And that way you can just get back after it that much faster. And then the second part to ice bathing is mental strength,
Mm.
because being in a bath that is 35 degrees is really, really difficult, and your body doesn't want to be there. So it starts to like kind of convulse and you hyperventilate a little bit and you get short of breath. So what you want to do is employ those breathing exercises in order to control your breath. Absolutely. And control your mind. And in putting yourself in that very uncomfortable situation on purpose and being able to regulate your breathing and regulate your mind throughout that experience, you find that in your life, you become less reactive when things get tough. Wow. You can regulate yourself in times of stress and challenge because you've conditioned your mind when shit gets tough.
Right.
To just breathe.
That I think that's amazing. I think that because oftentimes I think oftentimes a lot of the exercises and a lot of the things that we do from the physical side, it mirrors, the more so the adversities or things that we may face in the work world. Like everything is a mirror. There's nothing that doesn't, everything that you do, it all comes back full circle. The same mindset that you apply to a workout or to a breathing exercise to help build that, that resistance or that ability to kind of fight through, it is really unique because you can apply that to your goals and ambitions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know if do you know David Goggins?
Yes. Really, really familiar with Goggins. The book, his videos, very, very motivational guy.
Yeah, he is awesome. He has a quote I want to say really quick. It is, physical ability is hardly ever a test, or physical challenges are hardly ever a test of your physical ability. They're almost always a test of your own mind. And I think that as well about, taking tests and being in a learning environment and constantly coming across challenges in your personal and your family life too. It's hardly ever a test of, is it possible for me to push through? It's always a test of, am I going to take a step back and be able to push through this with a positive attitude and take the learning lessons from it and be able to grow from the experience.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's all about the takeaways. We don't think about it when we're going through it, but as we reflect on it and think about, okay, this situation may come up again. So it's like, how are you going to adjust your mind to be able to overcome it? How are you going to apply the lesson that you learned in the past to really, move forward and progress in a positive direction?
Exactly.
So when as far as I know that within your business specifically, there's this blueprint, the consistent coach blueprint. Why is that important?
Well, first of all, I'm a huge advocate for needing a map for things. So there's a great analogy I like to use. So say you're in New York. Okay. We're in New York and we're sitting at a coffee shop and we're like, all right, we want to go on a road trip. Where do we want to go? Right. We should go to LA. Let's do some like East Coast, West Coast here. Right. And so we're sitting in New York. We're like, all right, we want to go to LA. There's so many ways that we could do that. So many ways we could get there. Like, okay, how long do we want to take to get to LA? Right. We could take 3 days to get to LA. Boom, just be there. Or like a month to get to LA, take our time along the way and gain some value from that experience. Now, we get in the car together and we're about to go. We're all packed up and we've decided how long it's going to take us to get there. Now, are we ever worried when we look at the road, like, am I heading to LA right now?
No, you're just thinking about.
No, we're thinking about, okay, what exit do I take next? Right? Right. And if we get off track, if we get lost, or if we choose to take a detour in order to enrich the experience more, what we need is to know how to get back to that road and where in relation we are from in between New York and LA. Does that make sense? That does. So along the way, it doesn't matter how we get there. We don't have to follow, quote unquote, our roadmap to a T. But what matters is that we know where we are and where we're going and the next couple steps to get there.
So it's more so not looking at it, the trip in the whole, but more so looking at the incremental steps that you have to take to get there. And if you do kind of veer off, you know how to get back on, you know, the main road or the main highway. And I think that's, I think that's fascinating when, you know, not even just the blueprint aspect, but also understanding that, you know, we were talking, but before this, we were saying that there's no linear path, so to speak. You know, like there's
no right way to do life.
Exactly. There's no right way. So I think that it's interesting that you bring up that analogy of getting to New York or LA, but having those exits or having those things that get you back on track. And I'm pretty sure that there were, as you were developing and building your business, I'm pretty sure that there were times where you might have gotten off track, or you might have went a different direction, and you know, you might have veered off the path, but you had a personal map, or you knew where you were going, and you had an understanding of that to get you back on track. So I think that there's some parallels there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, you know, I think rewind for a second, because we did talk about the reason why I got into wellness, but then we got a little distracted with the ice bath thing. No. But then the second part of being, you know, a sales coach for wellness coaches is the sales part. So to do with the consistent coach blueprint, the reason why I brought up this roadmap idea is because in a blueprint and in a roadmap, there are certain milestones that we really have to hit in order to know that we're going in the right direction.
Certainly.
So, you know, maybe from between New York and LA, we have a couple of different milestones that we know that we need to make sure we take this exit here, make sure we take this exit here. We're going to kind of go southwest in general. So there are a couple of milestones that I hit in my personal career that really meant me to move in this direction. When you introduced me, you did say that I started my first business, you know, right out of college when I started to travel. That was a market research business. Nothing to do with this, but it did teach me how to run and manage a business from the back end. And then moving forward, I really went into this intensive sales program. Now, this program was phenomenal. It was one of my favorite milestones that I've hit in my life because it was so challenging. When I say that I drove $3,000 worth of revenue, it wasn't like I just sold one or two houses. It wasn't big ticket items. These were items that were between $30 and $200. So it was a large volume of individual sales for very small things. It was challenging mentally. It was challenging physically. It was challenging spiritually. It was challenging in every single way. And I was coming up against a promotion that I was supposed to be getting. I was working with a bunch of test products and helping to open an entire new market. And ultimately I was working in Houston at this point in time. And they were planning on me opening the market in Denver, Colorado.
Wow.
And really being able to expand their reach. Unfortunately, this is when COVID hit, and so everything kind of got messed up, but I really took that as my sign to take a new step forward because I had hit that milestone.
Right.
You know, I had acquired these skills of being able to drive sales predictably and effortlessly. And honestly, it's so much fun. All right, guys, anybody that's listening, sales is presented as such a dirty thing.
Right.
It should never, ever be dirty. You should always ask people permission if they want to buy things. You should always just give them the information, have a genuine conversation, and see if they need the product or not. And if they don't need the product, then somebody else is going to. So anyone that is on their grind out there and they are struggling in sales, don't worry so much about selling your product. Just believe in yourself and build some genuine relationships.
Yeah, because I mean, even just me, I've had, you know, just me working as a recruiter. I mean, recruiting is sales to some degree. You have to,
totally.
In every aspect. And I've always, you know, I've always was told that you're not really selling the product, you're selling yourself. You know, you're it's an exchange of energy. And if, you know, if you're not being genuine and you're not being yourself, then what makes that person feel as though they're going to trust you to actually purchase something, actually trust what you're saying. You know what I mean? Because you have
Exactly.
to,
It's like
yeah,
dating.
exactly. You have to be genuine. But I wanted to, kind of take a step back. You said that there were some challenges that you had, mentally, spiritually. I guess if you can touch on those challenges a little bit, because everyone, in sales, everything, for me, I think that just for me personally, when I was starting out, and for me, it was just more so kind of like saying what I thought that they wanted to hear in a sense versus
Mhm.
being myself. I think that was a big challenge for me, and as well as being diligent. I think there's a level of diligence that comes with sales so that you can build a relationship. You have to listen. Every conversation, you have to actively listen. And that's something that I didn't really do because I was always, I want to just sell and I want to just hit this goal and that's it. I want to move on to the next. So what were
Yeah,
some of those challenges that you experienced when you were, going through that transition, within that sales experience?
absolutely. So there's three things.
Mm,
The first is ego. The
mm,
second is authenticity.
mm,
And the third is consistency.
mm,
So the first one, ego. It took an incredible amount of uh, humility
mm,
to be able to step into a place where um, I didn't know, I wasn't an expert,
right,
right? So I had a degree, I had, a marketing degree, I had traveled all over the world,
right.
I had been out on my own, I had started a business. I get to this sales program and I sucked. And, just being able to put your quote unquote certifications
Right.
aside and be like, actually, I'm not getting results.
Mm,
That doesn't matter what piece of paper that I have hanging on my wall.
right.
If I don't get results, that's why I love sales. Like, if you don't get results, then you have some things to learn.
Right.
So it really hit me in the face about that student mentality and being able to say, okay, I have more to learn
Mm,
in life. I
mm,
have more to learn in business. I'm excited to take on this challenge of understanding something new and then being able to execute it
mm,
with high results and high standards for yourself, and not just quit and be like, oh, this is stupid.
right.
But in my heart, if I had quit, I would have known it was because I was bad at
Right.
it.
You
So that's the first thing, the ego,
mm,
is getting over when you come up against something that you don't know, being able to take that step back and be a student
right.
and say, hey, this is going to be super valuable and I should probably learn it, even though I don't look that cool right now.
Right.
That second thing was authenticity.
Mm,
So authenticity was huge in sales. Like you said, you're selling yourself. But if you went on a first date with somebody and they were just like, here's all my credentials and here's how much money I have in the bank. And also, like, this is the purse that I got for like $600. And like, I'm going this week, like, to the Hamptons this week with my friend Christian Bale.
right.
And like, you just put it all out there and word vomited all of this quote positive stuff about yourself.
Right.
That date would not go very well.
It wouldn't. That's a lot. That's a lot. You're just pushing on to someone. It's like, whoa, we just met.
I know you started like leaning back in your chair
Right.
as I was saying all
Yeah.
that.
It's like, whoa. A lot.
Exactly. So you got to be authentic. You
Right.
have to understand that people want real. Real recognizes real.
Mm,
And people are not going to buy your stuff, or people are not going to buy you.
mm,
And this is great for not only people that are in sales, but people that are, doing college applications
mm,
or applying for a scholarship or a new program. Real recognizes real. Just put yourself out there. Tell people the real story,
right.
not just the glossed over version that everybody else wants to hear.
Mm,
Because I'm telling you, I was also in recruitment when I was in the sales program, just in like building our sales teams and everything.
right.
And I can't tell you how many resumes that I've gone through. I'm sure you can relate.
Right.
And how refreshing is it when somebody just has something that's totally unique and it's just like, bam,
Right.
whoa, they just dropped the mic on that. Like, I don't know if you have a specific example, but one of the guys I interviewed was like, my special interests include like this, and cigars. And I was
Right.
like, Interesting.
Yeah.
There's a conversation starter.
And I noticed that like when I was in California, when I was in Irvine, I was, and even parts of because I started in Irvine, but I also worked in the same company when I moved to Dallas early on. And I was working in IT. I was working in IT recruitment, and we would invite the candidates into the office and sit down with them and really go through their resume. And initially, like I mentioned initially, whereas though I was so kind of gassed on, okay, I want to place this individual. I want to get this person a job. But I think that I had to learn how to, really, dig into like what people are interested in beyond just their resume. Because even though, like when I was recruiting IT, it was like, if you went to, if you had an Ivy League education, or you had your PhD in I don't know, engineering or software engineering, or like if you had those credentials, that was like the biggest thing.
Right.
But it was like these people was more to them than really what you could see just on a resume. I had to really learn that. And I think that by learning that, it allowed for me to also, be able to be transparent and open about, my story, and being able to be relatable. Because in these environments where I was at, like whether it was California or Texas, my story and where I was living and coming from was very different. And because initially I was like, well, because I'm different, how am I going to relate to everyone? Because it feels like everyone has a very, even in, in California, most people were there most of their lives. And even here in Texas,
right.
people have been there. No one's really ever moved. So I did a lot of moving around. And I think from that, when I would talk to people, when I look on their resume and say, they live on the East Coast or on the West Coast, I can say, okay, I know I'm familiar with that. I'm from the East Coast, but I also went to college in Pennsylvania. Like I'm familiar with different things, but I'm able to have conversations a lot more. So that's something that I had to learn, over time within sales.
Yeah. And, the diversity of experience doesn't just come from like East Coast to West Coast to traveling to Asia to road tripping out of the back of your car. I feel as though there's a lot of people that can enrich their lives in the same place. If you've grown up in the same town, you've never seen anything but your hometown, you have an ability to recognize the beautiful things in a smaller space than some people that are just out there looking for and chasing for something that is elusive.
Right.
Because there's always going to be a beautiful view. There's always going to be more, shiny objects and activities to do. But what really matters is, can you sit down and have a genuine conversation with someone? Certainly. Like recognizing your story as super unique and seeing the milestones that you've hit in your life and say, okay, how does this build me to be the person I am today? How did I get here? And how do I want to utilize these tools I have in my toolbox to catapult me into a successful place?
Absolutely. And that kind of, that it's funny that you touched on, because that transitions into more so my next question of why entrepreneurship, because I think back to, we talk about stories, and I think that in being authentic, I felt like, because we both went to Susquehanna, I felt like just from a professional standpoint, I felt like I was like going through the motions to get a job, not necessarily to start my own thing. And I don't know, it's not just like a Susquehanna thing, but it's more so just like the system of, education and higher learning, right? You're kind of trained to get a job. Not many people are like excited to like really start their own thing and really be authentic to themselves. So that's my question, like how, why entrepreneurship for you? Like why did you make that switch? Why did you choose entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it gets enough credit as a viable option. It is definitely I would definitely not say that it was an easy path, but I would say it was an easy choice. And here's why. I grew up being the kid in elementary school and I don't know if anyone of you guys can relate to this, but teacher would be like, all right, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. First grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. This is a thing every year. Right. And we would all sit down and like have a picture and like a little essay to write. And I would cheat off the person next to me.
Because you just didn't know. You was like, oh, that's
like, I don't know what I want to do. I didn't have like, so I didn't want to be like a doctor or a veterinarian or a ballet dancer or, you know, a lawyer, any of these quote jobs that were offered as the viable steps forward. And I had always been really involved in community projects and leadership. So I was captain of my dance team. I was captain of my ultimate frisbee team in college. I was really all about leading in any group project that I had. And I was always kind of going against the grain. You know, I was also the kid socially, kid and adult, actually. I still am like this, where I don't have just one core group of friends. I have many core groups of friends that I definitely diversify my experiences all across the board. So there is never just one thing for me to be doing. So this way of living really, it was a huge struggle for me in trying to figure out like what comes next. What comes next? Because I've done a lot of traveling. I could keep traveling, but I wanted to contribute to society. I wanted to contribute to people's well-being on a very large scale. And I'm also very ambitious. And I got a taste of this in my sales program. But I also got a taste of this in doing an internship in Shanghai, China, doing my travels and just being independent in general and taking on small projects that were just my own. But that taste was of no cap, right? I know no cap has like another meaning today, but well, I mean, maybe it applies here. No cap, like, but there's no cap on success for entrepreneurship. Well, I have to put a little asterisk here and say there's also no floor. It's no ceiling, but no floor. So, you know, you can, if you sit on your butt and do nothing and are quote unquote an entrepreneur, you are not going to make any money and nothing is going to fall into place. But there is no cap on success. There's no ceiling as far as how far you can go. It's all about your personal connections, your personal skills, the systems that you have in place. And then these three things that will allow you to be successful in anything that you do, but particularly entrepreneurship, is an extremely hard work ethic, a killer student mentality, which is just that learning, like lifelong learner mentality I was talking about before, and just a positive attitude. And when challenges come your way, see them as an opportunity for growth rather than something that is like in your way. You know, you go into like video games, right? And the more monsters that you beat, like the more kills that you get, then like the more points that you have. I'm definitely not a gamer. I'm not using the right jargon, but like, but that's how I think of it, is like the more monsters that I beat in life, the more vitality that I personally have. And the more strength that I have to take on challenges. So in like why not being an entrepreneur, I think I've just developed a really a huge love for challenge and overcoming that and being able to become whoever I want to be and not feel like I have to stay in a box.
Yeah, because I think that you touched on a lot of different things. Like one of the things that was,
I know that was a lot.
No. I think that, you know, I really understood it, because I've always looked at, initially when I was starting out, I always looked at certain challenges or adversities as like, okay, this is the end. This is it. This is where it all starts. This is where the story ends. But one of the things I always underestimated was my endurance. I knew that, like, even though I knew it didn't look right in this particular moment, but I always knew that I had the endurance to really like push myself and really, you know, outlast whatever it was in my face. You know, I knew it was going to be some bumps and bruises along the way, but I always knew that, like you said, with a positive mental attitude and just knowing that, okay, it's going to get better. It's not going to, you know, to be always. This is not going to be the end, or this is not how the story ends. It's not how it's always going to be. And it's something that I had to, learn, by going through, different adversities. And, I was, you answered the question. My next question was, what are some of those struggles? Because I think as an entrepreneur, everyone kind of sees the trophies or the materials that come from necessarily the labor, but not a lot of people aren't as open about the struggles, right? And you say you had to shift to having a positive mental attitude, had to shift to looking at your challenges, growth opportunities. But you didn't just think that when you got hit with the first challenges, right? So it's a process. Like, how did you go about developing that process of understanding your challenges as growth opportunities?
Well, first, just learning to laugh at yourself.
Don't take yourself serious. So yeah,
seriously, because like you only get one life, and everybody is embarrassing. Like everyone is embarrassing themselves constantly, and you just have to realize that if you laugh at yourself, then there is no higher praise.
Right.
It really isn't. And I like to use this analogy. This was a real experience. It was an unfortunate experience. First time I was in Asia. So I don't know if you guys know this, but the rest of the world outside of the United States, for the vast most part, does not put the toilet paper in the toilet.
Yes, Cyprus. I experienced that in Cyprus. They put it when I stayed abroad in Cyprus, they put it in the garbage can.
Yeah,
they don't flush it down.
Makes a ton of sense.
Right.
You come back to the United States and you're like, this is kind of bad. This is like terrible.
This is not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, most places in Asia, unless you're like in a big city or something, they don't stock toilet paper. So kind of bring these two things like back together. So challenges. You have to be able to laugh at yourself, because when you are in Asia for the first time and you didn't know that they didn't stock toilet paper, but you're already sitting down.
It's like, that's what
like that's basically what life is like.
Wow.
Like that's basically what life is like. You're just like, well, sugar honey iced tea. I am screwed here. I'm kind of screwed here. So how am I going to figure this out? What are my resources? You're like, look around you. Like, okay, no tissues. Okay. And then you like look through your purse and then you find a napkin and it's the best day ever. You just have to be respectful. You have to laugh at yourself, and then you have to learn from your mistakes and be prepared next time.
Definitely. So you don't have to sit on the toilet and look for the toilet paper. You know what to do with it.
Exactly. You can't like necessarily yell from the bathroom because it's an outhouse that's like way in the back alleyway, and like nobody speaks English anyways.
Right. Certainly. I think, and also too, and this transitions to my next question. I think in the beginning you said that, when you were a student, you were really little, you didn't know, you didn't want, not say you didn't want to, but you didn't kind of see yourself being like the generic kind of, lawyer or doc. Not saying that's generic, but that's just mostly what kids say when they're little, when they're asked what you want to be when you grow up. And you had a self-awareness of, okay, I've always, worked on community projects. I've always been in some sort of leadership capacity. And kind of bridging that to what you just said with the fact that this is a STEM podcast, and a lot of people that are going to be listening to this and watching this have STEM backgrounds, right? What I mean by that is that, they have technical, skill sets, right? They are really good at problem solving. They're very analytical. However, they would like to leverage those skills or leverage those strengths into becoming entrepreneurs. And you leverage your skills and you felt like, okay, this is what I'm good at, but how do I take it and really not transition for the sake of transitioning and saying, okay, forget corporate America, or, I want to do something different, but more so filling in the gaps. How did you, or what is your advice on people understanding what they're good at and using that to fill gaps? What is your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome question, by the way. Now, The number one thing that I would have to say in response to that, in terms of advice for people that are in STEM but wanting to be entrepreneurs, is, you have a zone of genius. Own it and understand that you don't necessarily fit into your own, you don't necessarily fit into the box which corporate America has kind of put us in, right? So there's like certain jobs that are available. You go on LinkedIn and you're like, okay, I have XYZ degree, or I have XYZ skills. And so I'm going to go on LinkedIn and I'm going to like search for marketing coordinator, or I'm going to search for like management positions. I'm going to search for information technology analyst. Like there's so many different boxes that they put us in, but instead of thinking about it, we're like, where can I fill a need? I think about, who do I want to help?
Right.
And what do they need? And do my skills fill that gap?
Right.
You can also reverse engineer this. So what skills do I have? What gaps does that fill? And then who does that help?
I agree, because I think that's extremely important, because for people who are, I was kind of in the same boat, in the sense that, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a lawyer because I thought that sounded good for people, to other people, right? Because that just sounds good. You say, oh, you're a lawyer, law school, it just sounds good.
I mean, I went to school originally for pre-med because, well, I wanted to be a doctor, but it was really only because I knew that would get everybody off my back and give me some positive feedback. Like, oh my gosh, I love that. I'm so happy that you're going to help people. And that's really hard. Like, kudos to you. It just got me constant kudos, and it wasn't true to my heart.
Exactly. And I think, like you said, shifting to seeing, okay, how can I help? How can I really help or really contribute? It's all about your contribution, and what need can I fill? I think those are the two things that we don't really, coming up. I think even from high school to college, we don't think about that. We just, more so for me, I was just like, I want to go to law school because it sounds good. I know that it's a lot of money attached to that, but I wasn't thinking about what I was good at and how I could use what makes me so different and unique to really contribute to society, to make everyone else better. And I think that's something that, no matter if you're in STEM or you're an entrepreneur in any industry that you're looking to get into, those are the things you have to examine within yourself in order to position yourself for success, right? Because it's all about positioning. It's not just, just wake up and become successful. It's how you, it's all about how you not just present yourself, but how you be, how genuine you are to people, and how many opportunities are you setting yourself up for. Like you said, as an entrepreneur, if you just sit down all day, you're not going to really make any money. You're not going to really hit your goals. So it's like, how are you positioning yourself, and how are you making the connections to get to where you want to be? So I think there's a
serious mental and spiritual mindset shift that I think that needs to happen in our education system, but also in our lives. And that is, think not about how I can, like, what I can get out of things. And this applies to everything, cool relationships, programs that you sign up for, but how can I contribute? Like, what can I give to this situation? There's an amazing book called The Go-Giver. And it is by Bob Burns. Wonderful, wonderful book. And it outlines the 5 principles of stratospheric success. And there's 5 different laws that he gets into that have seriously skyrocketed the profitability and has saved many corporations and businesses by applying these principles. And it's all based off of giving and gratitude.
Wow.
And doing that active listening that you had brought up earlier, and really understanding, like, life is so much like a relationship. Specifically, business is so much like a relationship. Absolutely. If you treat it like, oh, I want to get,
right,
it's not going to be a sustainable relationship. But if you treat it like, I want to nurture this, like, I want to nurture this project, whether that's in technology, whether that's in education, whether that is business, sales. If you are nurturing your project and giving in that giving mentality, instead of trying to suck the life out of something,
Right.
you will reap so much more benefit in such a sustainable way that you will be so much more successful if you are in a giving mindset rather than a get mindset.
Yeah, but it's all about, it's with it, I don't know, it reminds me of Rhonda Byrne's book, The Law of Attraction, right? It's always being in a state of gratitude, right? Things are coming to me, but at the same time, I can detach myself, or I can give more in order for it to come back to me. I don't have to, I think what you're touching on is more so the control, right? We always think that, we take and, I want to do this, I want to do that, instead of giving. We always want to be in control. We have to detach ourselves, from whatever it is that we want, and really give more, and see beyond ourselves and have more of an unselfish mindset. So I think that is extremely important.
And every millionaire
Right.
that
They're givers.
they do that.
Yeah.
If you want to get, you better start giving.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, in any capacity, you better start giving right now.
Absolutely.
Because that is what's going to bring abundance into your life, is if you give, you already have everything that you want.
Certainly. So at this stage in the show, we have this it's like a rapid fire section of the show called taking them to school. So so it's about 5 questions or so, and you just give me your fastest reaction or answers to this. So this is taking them to school. For you, what is your favorite adventure? What has been your favorite adventure so far up until this point?
So in the north of Vietnam, I went on this motorcycle trip and learned to ride a motorcycle. I actually taught people how to ride motorcycles. I got a job doing that. Right. Before I knew how to ride motorcycles. So that was really fun. I knew all of the concepts to do with it, but not actually had been on one before. So I did that, and it was this huge loop. It's called Ha Giang, Hagiang, beautiful mountainous region of Vietnam. And I got so unbelievably sick because it was so cold.
Wow.
And I'm shivering in my bed. It was so beautiful that I didn't even care. But I can't imagine ever being that sick ever again in my life. It was debilitating, but I just kept going.
Yeah.
It was multiple days on this trip.
Wow.
And I just remember, we would stay at these different homestays in different local people's houses, and it was just the most unbelievably beautiful scenery. And I was so sick this one night, and they didn't have any medicine, so they just gave me homemade vodka for medicine.
Wow.
And they were just here, this is gonna help. I'm I'll do anything at this point. So I just drank a bunch of homemade vodka, got underneath the covers. It was so cold. It was 30 degrees out. They didn't have any hot water. So I showered in 30-degree weather in cold water. And I got underneath all these blankets. Thank God they had those. And in the middle of the night, I was I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue this trip. I might have to stay in this random village. Wow. I don't know what's going to happen. And then the next day, not only did my fever break, but the clouds broke too. And it went from being foggy and snowy and gross to being sunny and 65 degrees and the most beautiful day. Wow. We went through this place called Ma Pilang Pass, and it was literally the most unbelievable scenery I've ever seen. And it's so in the middle of nowhere off the tourist beaten track. So that was definitely my favorite story.
What has been the biggest lesson you've learned so far this year?
Biggest lesson I've learned so far this year is that most things are out of your control. But what is within your control is your reactions. And if you always come from a place of gratitude and love and trying to understand where other people are coming from, that is where growth happens within you, but also where growth happens within others.
If it's one thing that you can tell your younger self, what would it be? Like some type of advice that you could tell, you give to yourself that, you know, starting out, like what advice would that be?
Um, I would tell myself that being an entrepreneur is a real thing. And that you can write that on all your little essays.
Absolutely. If you could collaborate with anyone, what I mean by collaborate, it could be on a specific project, or, you know, anyone in the world. It could be a celebrity, it could be, you know, someone, your neighbor. If you collaborate with one person, who would it be?
Allison Wonderland.
Wow.
She's Jay, who is in, I was supposed to go to her concert this weekend, RIP Music, right now.
Yeah. Won't get no
I was supposed to go to her
sponsor
concert
for
weekend.
wow.
But her name is super creative, Allison Wonderland.
Wow.
So really cool. And her music is electronic, but she is an unbelievable cellist. I think that's how you say it, a cello player. She can play all of the strings, all of the instruments, and has a wonderful voice as well. But she's a badass DJ. And I would love to collaborate with her. It's kind of weird being an entrepreneur wanting to collaborate with her, but here's my thing.
Right.
There is this grueling process of creator mentality that goes into making music that I think if we applied to schools, like if we could figure out like how people get into their zone of genius and then just create this thing that they can literally control thousands of people's heartbeats and like bring people from a really low place in their life to being the most excited and loving humans that they've ever been, just by creating music and in like a 2-hour period. I think that if we really dug into the creator mentality of musicians, then we could open up so many doors for our education system.
And then my last question would be, if you could be mentored by anyone in any industry, who would that one person be?
I actually am being mentored by the person that I want to be mentored by.
Okay.
Yeah, so her name is Rachel Bell. She's at Rachel Bell on Instagram if anyone wants to look at her. She runs a program called Online Coach Accelerator, and she is very, very spiritual, really well-intentioned human. She grew up here in Colorado as well, so I've gotten to hang out with her and really dig in with her about a couple of really awesome topics. And she is just a wonderful human in general and so knowledgeable. And she runs a multiple 7-figure business in the coaching industry. And she is 24. So.
Wow. A prodigy.
Yeah. So she is my exact age. And she's super inspiring, and I love her to death, like as a friend and also as a mentor. And yeah, she's taught me a lot.
Definitely. Well, Shannon, thank you for being a guest on Schoolin the SiSTEM. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Where can we, you know, for the viewers and the listeners, where can we find you on Instagram, email? Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is Shannon Grayce. So ShannonGrayce. There you can find in my highlights just a bunch of things like what I do, who I help, the results that I've gotten with the coaching program that I currently run. And if anyone has any questions, if you are a wellness coach out there, and this includes all types of wellness coaches, so personal trainers and yoga instructors and spiritual guides and meditation guides, life coaches, mindset coaches, the world of wellness is vast, and it's my goal to be able to spread this as far and wide as possible. So what I want to do is give you guys the skills to be able to spread your business, become more successful in getting consistent clients, but also being able to give your gifts at the same time and spread this message of wellness everywhere throughout the world. And also so you guys can just have time to have fun.
Absolutely.
Because I'm a big fan of adventure. So I want everyone to be able to live the life that they truly want to live. If anyone has any questions about getting started as an entrepreneur, no matter what type of business that you want to start, I would love to connect and chat. So hit me up, and I've got some free trainings for you guys. So
perfect. Shannon, it was a pleasure having you on again. Thank you so much. And yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day.
thank you so much. I'm so blessed to be here.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, Shannon.